On Daf 66 of Yevamot, we continue this whole debate about whether or not women also have the obligation to be fruitful and multiply. We've been talking for several Daf in the Gemara about men having that obligation. And in fact, the previous Daf, there was a segment which talked about a woman who had really painful birth, who's the wife of a rabbi, who dressed herself up in disguise and went to ask her husband, do women have this commandment on them? And he said, nope, it's just on men. And she literally took a certain potion that made her infertile, so she'd never have to go through that pain of birth again, because her husband had said it wasn't on her. So she felt, okay, I was okay. But we continue on Daf 66, that whole discussion of women, whether women have that or not. And there's a whole question of the woman who is half a slave. Now, why is this coming up? Because earlier in the Gemara, we had this debate about what happens if, a slave has two masters and, one of the masters chooses to free the slave and the other person doesn't. So the person's half a slave and half free. And Beit Hillel says, okay, so he works half time for himself and half the time for his master. And Beit Shammai says, no, this is not the way we're supposed to go, because he's not fulfilling the purpose of his existence. He's not a half slave, is not allowed to marry a slave, is not allowed to marry somebody who's free, and therefore he won't be able to do the whole commandment of be fruitful and multiply. It's not good. So you've helped the master, because the master's getting full value. Rather, the other master should free him, and he should go ahead and he will have a debt to pay back, whatever half his value is. But now we ask the same question on with a woman as a half slave. And it also says that if a woman's a half slave, it's not good, and whoever owns half of her should free her. So the question is then asked, okay, is this the same thing? We said with the men that it was a proof of the fact that, they had this need to go out and be fruitful and multiply. This is a very important commandment, and we are stopping them from doing so. So the fact that we do it for women, isn't that a proof that women have that obligation too? And this one rabbi says, no, that's not actually what it's coming to show. It's coming to show that if a person is half free and half slave, yes, they wouldn't be able to get married. And we're not freeing them so the woman can get married because she has the commandment to be fruitful and multiply. We're freeing her because if we're not going to allow her to get married, then she's going to say, wow, if you won't let me marry in the normal way, I will go engage in all kinds of promiscuous behavior and outside of marriage, because we all have our needs, and then she's going to lead to a whole bunch of activity for herself and draw other people into it, because we are denying her the right to marry like anybody else. So this person is saying it's not that she has the commandment to be fruitful and multiply, but we don't want her acting in a way that is going to be bad for her and bad for society. So we make the person who owns half of her free her, just like with the men, but it's not because they share the same commandment.